Arsenal did not fail to beat Liverpool because of defensive resilience from the visitors. They failed because they have purchased a weapon they do not know how to load. #core analysis. Victor Gyökeres recorded 8 touches in 64 minutes at the Emirates Stadium tonight. 8, not in a hostile away environment, not against a full-strength opponent. At home, against a Liverpool side stripped of Mohamed Salah, Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike, 3 first-choice attackers missing. And still the man signed to deliver Arsenal's first title in over 2 decades touched the ball fewer times than some goalkeepers do in a half. This is not an anomaly, this is evidence. The narrative surrounding Arsenal's title credentials has been built on a simple premise: add a proven number 9 and the final piece falls into place. Gyökeres arrived with a reputation forged at Sporting Lisbon, a record that suggested he could convert half-chances into certainties. But records do not transfer. Systems do not automatically accommodate new parts. And what tonight revealed in the most uncomfortable way possible is that Arsenal's attacking structure has developed without a traditional focal point at its center. Years of Arteta's positional play, the rotations, the wide overloads, the inverted movements, all of it was calibrated for a different kind of forward. Someone who drops, who links, who creates numerical superiorities in pockets of space. Gyökeres does not do this. He attacks depth. He wants runners ahead of him, space behind defenders, direct service into channels where his physicality becomes an asset rather than an obstacle. None of this arrived tonight. He stood isolated between Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahima Konate, 2 of the most aerially dominant center-backs in European football, waiting for balls that never came. And when Gabriel Jesus replaced him after the hour mark, the substitute had more touches in 26 minutes than the starter managed in more than double that time. This is not about form, this is about fit. Consider the implications carefully. Arsenal signed a striker to solve their conversion problem. The theory was logical. The execution has been flawed. Gyökeres thrived in Portugal because Sporting built their attacking patterns around his movement. They delivered early balls. They created isolation opportunities. They fed his strengths rather than demanding adaptation. Arsenal have done the opposite. They have inserted a predator into an ecosystem designed for a different species entirely. And predators, removed from their natural habitat, do not hunt effectively. Arsenal dominated the first 45 minutes. They pressed Liverpool into deep positions, forced turnovers, created territorial superiority in every metric that does not involve putting the ball in the net. Their control was undeniable. But control without penetration is merely possession. And possession without a clear route to goal becomes a performance rather than a strategy. The passing combinations between Odegaard, Rice and Zubimendi were aesthetically pleasing. The wide rotations involving Saka and Trossard stretched Liverpool's defensive shape. Every tactical box was ticked except the most important one. The box that requires someone to finish. The box that requires a striker to be involved. There was a moment early in the match when Connor Bradley struck the crossbar following a defensive miscommunication between David Raya and William Saliba. That moment should have served as a wake-up call. It should have reminded Arsenal that even depleted opponents carry danger. Instead, it seemed to reinforce their cautious approach. Rather than increase the tempo, Arsenal retreated into patterns. Comfortable patterns, predictable patterns. Patterns that Liverpool, even without their best attacking options, had studied and prepared for. Liverpool, for their part, offered nothing in the attacking third. 0 shots on target across 90 minutes. The first time that has happened to them in a Premier League fixture since March 2010. Arne Slot arrived at the Emirates not to win but to avoid losing, and in that narrow objective he succeeded. But his success was facilitated by Arsenal's inability to pose the questions that would have demanded answers. Slot's game plan was transparent from the opening whistle. Concede territory, protect the central corridor, force Arsenal wide and trust Van Dijk and Konate to deal with crosses. It was conservative football, pragmatic football, the kind of football that draws criticism when it fails and receives grudging respect when it works. Tonight it worked. Not because Liverpool executed brilliantly, but because Arsenal refused to deviate from their script even when the script was clearly not producing results. The second half told a different story. Liverpool took control of the ball without ever truly threatening with it. Dominic Szoboszlai launched speculative efforts from distance. Florian Wirtz drifted through congested areas without finding the final pass. The Reds completed 80 passes in the final third after halftime while Arsenal managed 30. And yet, for all that territorial dominance, Liverpool generated nothing, because they too are suffering from the absence of a functional striker. Cody Gakpo, deployed as a central forward through necessity rather than design, offered movement but not presence. He worked hard, he ran channels, but he is not a number 9. And Liverpool's reliance on a player out of position mirrors in a strange way Arsenal's reliance on a player who does not suit their system. The atmosphere inside the Emirates shifted perceptibly as the second half progressed. The early energy that greeted Arsenal's dominance gave way to something closer to anxiety. The home supporters recognized what they were witnessing. A team that had started with intent was now retreating. A team that had created pressure was now absorbing it, not because Liverpool posed a significant threat, but because Arsenal had run out of ideas. This psychological shift is perhaps the most concerning element for those who believe this is Arsenal's year. Title-winning teams impose themselves on matches. They dictate terms regardless of the opponent's approach. They find solutions when the obvious paths are blocked. Tonight, Arsenal found nothing. They watched Liverpool take the ball and could not retrieve it. They watched the minutes tick away and could not accelerate. Two clubs, two striker problems, two different manifestations of the same underlying disease. The parallel between these situations deserves examination. Arsenal spent considerable resources to acquire Gyökeres because they believed he would provide certainty in the final third. Liverpool spent even more across their squad, yet find themselves without a reliable option when injuries strike. Neither investment has produced the intended outcome. Neither club can claim to have identified and solved their fundamental weakness. And in a match where both weaknesses were exposed simultaneously, the result was inevitable. A sterile, cautious, forgettable draw that satisfied no one except those who had predicted exactly this outcome. Arsenal's failure tonight was not one of effort, it was one of architecture. The expectation was that Gyökeres would adapt to Arsenal, that he would learn the patterns, absorb the movements, integrate into the collective. But adaptation takes time, and title races do not wait for integration. Every match without a functioning attacking outlet is a match where Arsenal's domestic dominance remains theoretical rather than realized. Liverpool's failure, meanwhile, is compounding. Their win rate without Ekitike in the starting lineup sits at 30% this season, 3 victories from 10 attempts. The Frenchman has become essential not because of individual brilliance but because without him the system has no target, no one to receive in behind, no one to occupy defenders long enough for the midfield runners to arrive. His absence, combined with Salah's international commitments and Isak's injury, has reduced Slot's attack to a collection of midfielders pretending to be forwards. And pretending is not enough. What tonight demonstrated is that neither side can claim to have solved the riddle of modern attacking football. Arsenal possessed the tools for sustained pressure without the mechanism for clinical finishing. Liverpool possessed the individual quality to threaten on transitions without the personnel to execute. Both teams have spent hundreds of millions in recent windows. Both remain structurally incomplete. The draw suits Liverpool more than Arsenal, not because of the point itself but because of what the performance protected. A 14-point gap to the league leaders is insurmountable realistically speaking. Liverpool are playing for second place now, for Champions League qualification, for reputation. A draw at the Emirates, regardless of how it was achieved, allows Slot to claim progress. Unbeaten in 10 matches across all competitions, resilience restored, foundations rebuilt. There is a certain irony in Liverpool's situation. They arrived as champions, defending a title they seemed destined to surrender months ago. The turbulence of autumn, the defeats that accumulated, the questions about Slot's methods, all of that has been addressed through results that lack conviction but contain substance. Liverpool are not good enough to challenge for the title. Everyone understands this now, but they are professional enough to collect points against direct rivals. They are disciplined enough to execute a defensive plan when circumstances demand it. And they are experienced enough to recognize when a draw represents victory in all but name. Arsenal cannot afford such comfort. 6 points clear is a healthy margin. But Manchester City and Aston Villa have not surrendered. The schedule does not relent. In every match where Gyökeres is invisible, where the final ball dies in crowded areas, where the home crowd grows restless as the clock ticks past 70 minutes without a genuine opening, is a match that asks uncomfortable questions about whether this team truly knows how to win a title. The record books will show that Arsenal have won 7 consecutive home league matches entering tonight. They will show that only once under Arteta have they achieved a longer winning streak at the Emirates. What the records will not capture is the nature of those victories. The narrow margins, the late interventions, the moments of individual quality that obscured collective dysfunction. Arsenal have found ways to win, but finding ways to win is not the same as deserving to win. And against opponents who study their patterns, who prepare specifically to neutralize their strengths, Arsenal have struggled to impose themselves. Liverpool represent exactly this kind of opponent. Slot has faced Arteta 4 times now, 4 meetings without defeat, 3 draws and 1 victory. The Spaniard has tried different approaches. He has rotated personnel. He has adjusted formations. None of it has worked. Slot has found the formula. He has identified the spaces Arsenal leave unprotected. He has understood how to frustrate their build-up. He has learned when to press and when to retreat. And until Arteta solves this puzzle, the question will persist. The substitutions arrived too late. Saka departed when the match demanded him most. Odegaard followed when his vision was still required. The introduction of Madueke and Ez altered the patterns slightly, but patterns cannot be altered in the final 15 minutes when the previous 70 have established a rhythm that cannot be broken. Arteta's decisions will face scrutiny. Why remove your two most creative players when creativity is precisely what the situation demands? Why wait until the 64th minute to withdraw a striker who had contributed almost nothing? Why not recognize earlier that the game required adjustment? These questions do not have easy answers. Arteta has earned trust through results. He has navigated difficult periods before. But tonight exposed a rigidity in his approach that contradicts the flexibility required to win titles. Sometimes the plan does not work. Sometimes the opponent neutralizes your primary threats. Sometimes you must improvise. Arsenal did not improvise tonight. They persisted with an approach that had already failed. Liverpool defended deep in the second half because they could, because Arsenal offered no reason for them to step higher, because the threat had evaporated. And threats do not evaporate against title-winning teams. The tactical dynamics of the final 30 minutes revealed something troubling about Arsenal's mentality. When Liverpool took control of possession, Arsenal accepted it. They retreated into a mid-block and waited. They did not press with the intensity of the opening half. They did not force turnovers in dangerous areas. They seemed content to defend and hope for a counterattacking opportunity that never materialized. This passivity is unusual for a team at the summit of the table. It suggests fatigue, perhaps, or uncertainty, or a lack of belief that the system would produce the breakthrough if given time. Whatever the cause, the consequence was clear. Arsenal surrendered the initiative in a home match against weakened opponents. They allowed Liverpool to dictate the tempo, to run down the clock, to achieve exactly what Slot had planned when he selected his lineup. This is not how champions behave. Champions take games by the throat. Champions refuse to accept draws when victories are available. Champions find answers even when the questions are difficult. The first goalless draw between these sides in the Premier League since August 2015 will be forgotten within weeks. The table remains unchanged in practical terms. Arsenal lead, Liverpool trail, life continues. But the illusion has been shattered. The illusion that signing a prolific striker automatically transforms a team into title winners. The illusion that squads can absorb new personnel without friction. The illusion that dominance in one half translates to certainty over 90 minutes. The illusion that Arsenal have solved the problems that prevented them from winning titles in previous seasons. Mikel Arteta has still not beaten Arne Slot. 4 meetings, no victories, 3 draws, 1 defeat. The Dutch coach, for all the criticism he receives, has found a way to neutralize Arsenal repeatedly. He has made them uncomfortable. He has forced them to confront their limitations. And tonight, at a stadium where Arsenal have won 7 consecutive league matches, Slot did it again. This was not a statement from Liverpool. They remain too far behind, too inconsistent, too dependent on players who are unavailable. But it was a warning to Arsenal. You cannot buy solutions, you must build them. And building takes longer than January. The coming months will determine whether tonight was an aberration or a harbinger. Arsenal face fixtures that will test their resolve. They will encounter opponents who have studied this match, who have recognized that patience and discipline can frustrate Arteta's system. They will need Gyökeres to integrate faster, to find spaces and structures designed to eliminate him, to become the focal point that justifies his transfer fee. The clock is ticking. The margin for error is shrinking. And the illusion that everything was solved with one signature has been permanently destroyed. Final verdict. If Arsenal lose this title, the post-mortem will begin here, on a rain-soaked Thursday night where they had everything except the one thing that matters: a plan to score against a team that had already decided not to.